Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is a special meeting of the Board of Supervisors. It's 6 p.m. on March 2nd, 2022. I want to start by doing a roll call and look at the approval of our agenda. But first things first is I do know that Supervisor Rabbit is en route and logging on soon. But let's go through and do a roll call, Karen, right now. You're muted if you're trying to call.
I know. I just realized that.
Okay.
Supervisor Gordon?
Here.
Supervisor Rabbit? Absent for now. Supervisor Corsi? Absent. Supervisor Hopkins?
Present.
Chair Gore?
Here, and happy to be here with everybody. Thank you all for joining. Real quickly, just a reminder to everybody that this is a special meeting. We note to anybody that Spanish translations are available in Zoom. To select translation services, please click on the globe icon on the Zoom screen and select Spanish. Por favor, para todos que hablan español como primer idioma, hay que hacer clic en el globo en la pantalla y escoger español o Spanish. Durante los comentarios públicos, si una persona que está dando comentario en el español, todos nuestros hablantes de inglés pueden ir al globo y seleccionar inglés para escuchar la traducción hacia inglés. For all of those who are English speakers, if you hear during public comment an individual who is speaking in Spanish, you can also go to the globe and click on the globe and select English for everyone that is there. Here we go. I do see that there's a hand raised.
Yes, thank
Alegría
you.
de la Cruz, I want to pass it over to you.
Thanks. I'm hearing from the Spanish channel that there's quite an echo in Julie's interpretation. So I'm wondering if we could just spend some time to see if we could troubleshoot that.
Yeah, thank you.
I just tested it myself and it sounds fine.
So, Christina, you're saying that it works fine for you.
Yeah.
Alegría, do you want to try it again? And Julie, maybe you can speak into it so we can hear if it's if some folks who are listening can hear.
Yeah, there's still... Julie, todavía tenemos un eco aquí en el canal de español.
I am hearing it now.
Yeah.
Julie, es como si fuera al último. ¿Tendrás dos micrófonos? A ver, trata otra vez.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Ya se
The
acabó.
panelists and-
Ahorita se escucha bien, Julie. Gracias.
Sí, gracias, Julie.
Are we good to go? Thank you, Alegría. Thank you very much for leaning in on that. Here we are together. This is a review. This is a regular calendar item. And for the approval of the agenda, we have to go through this just real quickly. We have one key item, which is at 6 p.m. For the Truth Act ICE Virtual Community Forum. And so the approval of the agenda, I'm just looking to my colleagues to see if there's any comments from either Supervisors Hopkins or Gorin. If not, we're going to move forward with the approval of the agenda as is.
And Supervisor Gore, this is Christina. I just tried the Spanish channel and it came back. So I'm going to go in the Spanish channel and talk to help.
Okay, do you want us to pause for you, Christina?
Julie, regresó el eco. Sí,
Sí,
Sí.
también yo.
sí, es muy evidente todavía. Muy bien. Supervisor, you heard that, right?
Mhm.
We are going to reset. She's going to reconnect.
Okay, she is going to reconnect, or we're going to reconnect the whole meeting?
Yes, for connection.
Yes. Ujú.
Para los participantes en español, vamos a pedirle a la traductora que vuelva a iniciar su conexión para ver si podemos resolver el eco. Gracias.
There we go. Thank you. There's Supervisor. I see Julie's back on our call again and speaking into it.
I'm going to go check the channel in Spanish.
Thank you, Cristina.
Sí, lo
Ahorita no
escuchamos
tienes-
bien.
Ahorita no tienes eco. Ujú. Gracias,
listos?
Judy.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you
we're all
very much,
good.
everybody. We're going to go back to the top just real quickly. I see that Supervisor Rabbit. I appreciate you. We saw that you were calling in, and so I just want to note to Karen that Supervisor Rabbit's here with us. I know Supervisor Corsi is actually out of town, so just seeing if there's any comments from any of my colleagues on the approval of the agenda. The agenda is one item, meaning the number one, the Truth Act Access Virtual Community Forum. Hearing none, we're going to move on. So I want to go through a couple little comments here. First and foremost, the main panel that we're going to go to is going to include Petra Garcia from our Deputy County Counsel's Office. Our Deputy County Counsel, Cristina Rivera, is our Assistant County Administrator. Paul Gullickson, our Communications Manager for the County of Sonoma. Nicholas Klein is our Analyst in the County Administrator's Office. Sheriff Mark Essick is joining us, as well as Eddie Ingram, our Detention Assistant Sheriff. Michelle Hume from the Information Bureau, our Information Bureau Manager. Alegria de la Cruz, Director of our Office of Equity here in Sonoma County. Brian Morris, our Public Defender. Gamaliel Galindo is Deputy Public Defender, Immigration Specialist. And then we did have set up originally Margaret Flores McCabe, the Executive Director of the Secure Families Collaborative. But instead we have our former County Council and Board Member of the Secure Families Collaborative, Bruce Goldstein. Thank you for joining us. It's great to see you again, sir. And so what we're going to do is first I'll go through some talking points and kind of provide some context for where we are. I'll pass it over to to Petra to kick off the panel that we'll move into. Our County Administrator staff, Nicholas Klein, will present the Sheriff's ICE data for the calendar year 2021. And then I'll go to my board members, our fellow board members, and ask each person for questions or comments. We'll get an update from the Sonoma County Secure Families Collaborative from Bruce Goldstein. And then we will move over to public comment. And once we move over to public comment, we'll be able to have all of you present your comments in English or Spanish in Zoom, and we will provide time for each and every person. So one thing is just a reminder, we do have a commitment to civility, and that's for those who are presenting as well as those who are attending, to create an atmosphere of respect and civility. Where all of you who join and the public and all of us are free to express our ideas and also maintain a cordial and respectful atmosphere during our discussion. So we're here to foster a meaningful dialogue free of attacks, personal attacks. This is about business and accountability of government. And so with that being said, I'm going to start by letting folks know that the purpose of this forum and one of the key things here is we want to address prior feedback we've gotten from the public, is that the Truth Act, or the Transparent Review of Unjust Transfers and Holds Act, requires that local governing bodies, in which local law enforcement has provided any immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, access to individuals during the prior year, is that we hold a community forum to receive and consider public input. This is a forum for receiving information, listening to public comments. This is not a deliberation for the board with recommended actions. If we do look to make actions or deliberations, that could be at a regular board meeting. We wanted to make sure that we did this at night. There was a lot of community input from the previous year to have this not during a regular Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday during the day when people are at work. So I want to thank you for joining us. Also a reminder that the notice of public hearing for this forum was published in the Press Democrat 3 times, February 1st, 8th, and 15th. English and Spanish versions of our board item have been posted on the county's website on February 24th, and there's a press release that's been issued in English and Spanish with partners. This forum was also advertised via social media and direct communications with local Latinx partners and stakeholders, including nonprofits, healthcare, education, business, government, and media and radio. We've received feedback, as we mentioned to you all before, not only to move the forum from our daytime into the evening, but also requesting that all materials be made available 30 days prior to the forum date. We understand that feedback. This year, unfortunately, we were not able to get everything 30 days in advance of the March 2nd date. For next year, our goal is to do our best to meet this expectation. That's not a requirement under statute, but it's something that we want to commit to you all and to the community. We might need to conduct the forum a little bit later in the year next year to be able to do this and meet those kind of expectations. A couple points on immigration. I just want to state firmly that immigration and immigrant rights have long been an issue of importance here in Sonoma County. Immigrants make up a large portion of the Sonoma County community and a significant contribution to our culture, our community, and our way of life, including our economy. In 2016, legal and political shifts in immigration policy caused heightened fear and anxiety within the undocumented and immigrant communities, and the county responded through an immigration initiative focused on community engagement and education and immigration advocacy at the state and federal level. A significant contribution has been the county efforts to support the Secured Families Collaborative, focused on immigration legal services and wraparound social services. We'll hear more about that later. Our legislative advocacy has been focused on researching and analyze current and recently introduced or enacted immigration laws and executive orders to understand the legal and political landscape, to identify any and all opportunities to advocate for changes at the state and federal levels, and to weigh potential risks associated with those efforts. We have on hand many things that we are reviewing right now. One are things that we're reviewing today, which is SB 54, signed in 2017, the California Values Act. The county is actively supported to ensure that state and local resources were not used to support deportations and safeguard access to essential services for all residents, regardless of immigration status. I want to thank the Sheriff's Office and the county team for working on that together. Also, other legislative notes, AB 937, Assembly Bill 937, Immigration Enforcement in 2021. It's a 2-year bill. The county is currently tracking it through our state advocacy team. It has the potential to eliminate exemptions in SB 54 and the existing ability of law enforcement agencies to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. There were also provisions that we've been tracking and lobbying on in the Build Back Better immigrant provisions, the federal law. The county issued a letter of support in 2021 and outreach to each federal member highlighting Sonoma County's support for broad immigration reform and a path to citizenship. We had individual meetings with Senator Padilla on that through the California State Association of Counties, and also advocated very strongly for a Workforce Modernization Act provisions. There's also been a public charge rule through the Biden administration and proposed new regulations that would limit the number of public benefits that can weigh against immigrants applying for permanent U.S. residency or green cards. We're reviewing this for comment. And once again, I want to thank you all for joining us here for this forum. I'm first going to pass it over now to Petra from our County Counsel's Office to summarize the legal framework governing the relationship between the Board of Supervisors and the Sheriff as elected officials. Petra?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gore. Sonoma County is a general law county and political subdivision of the state of California. There are several elected officials in the county, including the Board of Supervisors and the Sheriff Coroner. The board is the legislative and executive body of the county. The board is responsible for adopting the annual county budget and for establishing county policy. The board has general authority to supervise the conduct of county officers in order to ensure they faithfully perform their duties. However, there are statutory limitations on this authority regarding the elected sheriff and the district attorney. As such, the board has no power to direct how elected officials, like the sheriff, perform their statutory duties or the manner in which those duties are performed. The sheriff is responsible for crime prevention and law enforcement patrol in the unincorporated portion of the county. He also has the sole and exclusive authority to maintain the jail. Finally, the sheriff has sole discretion in terms of deciding how to spend the approved budget that your board adopts for the sheriffs each year. With that, I will turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you very much, Petra. Nick Klein from our CAO staff. Nicholas, would love for you to move in and present the sheriff's ICE access data for the calendar year 2021.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can. And thank you.
Okay.
Please speak slowly for translations.
I will. Thank you. Good evening, Chair Gore, members of the board. My name is Nicholas Klein, as you mentioned. I'm an analyst with the County Administrator's Office, and I will be presenting the Truth Act data collected by the Sheriff's Office for calendar year 2021, pertaining to its interactions with ICE. Before covering the data, let me see here. I need to advance the presentation, and I'm having trouble finding it here. Hold on. There. I'm sorry, can you all still see the presentation? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, great, thank you. So before covering the data, I want to briefly touch upon how the Sheriff's Office interacts with ICE and community members. Regarding cooperation with ICE, the Sheriff's Office provides inmate release dates to ICE and the public in compliance with state law, including SB 54, the California Values Act. Inmates or their representatives are able to review information requests from ICE. The Sheriff's Office also helps undocumented victims of crime obtain U visas, which is a non-immigrant visa set aside for victims of crimes who are willing to assist with law enforcement in the investigation or prosecution of criminal activity. The Sheriff's Office does not have any authority over ICE, which is a federal agency. The Sheriff does not deport anyone. It also does not conduct immigration sweeps, nor accept immigration violation complaints. The Sheriff does not ask individuals about their immigration status when making contacts and will not contact someone based solely on their immigration status. The Sheriff also does not contact ICE to determine an individual's immigration status. The Sheriff's immigration policies are posted on its website and included as part of the forum materials, which are translated into Spanish. So moving on to the 2021 data, the Sheriff routinely receives, yes?
Nick, you need to put your presentation in your PowerPoint and presentation view. So under the view tab. Try slideshow again. Yes, you have to start it. Okay, well, we tried.
Yes, I'm hitting to start it, and it's not doing anything.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I can pull up a PDF and do a full screen if that's easier, or if it's not visible enough.
Darren, I think it's visible enough, right?
Yes, it's visible enough. It is visible enough. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. It's forcing it into this view.
You're just going to have to click on individual slides, right, to move them forward?
Right. So can you see slide 3 at the moment?
No, you're still on the
No.
title slide.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I apologize.
Have you
So-
have you tried to click on the right hand where there's like a little TV monitor right before the plus and the minus? On the right bottom corner?
hold on. These.
That works, Nick. We can see that.
You can see that now? Okay.
Well, now when you're back to the title page, click on the go to the third slide if you want us to see that.
Can you
We
see the third
that.
slide?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay. I apologize. So moving on to the 2021 data, the sheriff routinely receives inquiries from ICE asking for notifications of impending release dates for inmates in local custody. 117 requests were received in 2021. In compliance with the California Values Act, the sheriff uses a complicated decision matrix to determine how to respond to ICE's requests. After applying the SB 54 matrix criteria, the sheriff ultimately responded to 33 requests, or 28% of the total received last year. The sheriff's responses to ICE did not result in any arrests at its detention facilities last year. The first line on this slide here, this is slide 4, reports the number of internal immigration notification criteria tracking forms completed by Sheriff's Office staff upon receiving a notification request from ICE. ICE may make multiple requests for a single inmate. In 2021, 118 forms were completed for 105 unique individuals, and 43 of these forms resulted in a notification response to ICE after applying the SB 54 decision criteria. If an inmate believes staff incorrectly applied SB 54 criteria to an ICE request, they may request a review. Inmates requested 3 such reviews in 2021, but none of the results were reversed as an outcome of these reviews. The sheriff also receives other types of requests for information from ICE for individuals who may or may not be in custody. The sheriff handles these requests by applying the same SB 54 criteria to determine whether it should respond to ICE. The sheriff received 1 request for booking information, but upon review did not respond to ICE. The sheriff received 10 requests for crime reports and returned 2 crime report summaries. When looking at the number of notification requests received from ICE over time, we see a significant decline in the number of requests in 2021, dropping nearly 75% compared to 2020 and 80% from the peak in 2019. It is difficult to pinpoint the root cause of this decline. The SB 54 criteria and the sheriff's own policies for interacting with ICE have not changed over the past year. The average daily population is lower today than prior to 2020, but not enough to be the sole factor for this decline. The next few slides include high-level demographic information for the 33 individuals who had release notifications provided to ICE. The data is based on information self-reported by these inmates to the sheriff's staff during the booking process. The large majority of individuals were males between the ages of 24 and 48, which is consistent with prior year metrics. Regarding country of origin, 73% of individuals were from Mexico and Central America, which again is similar to prior years. So that concludes my presentation of the Sheriff's ICE Access data for 2021. Sheriff Mark Essick is available to help answer questions as well as his staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate you. So I'm going to go to questions and or comments from the board supervisors. So I'm going to look around and see if any of my colleagues have either their hands up or want to unmute their, and if not, what we would be doing is going to public comment a little bit earlier. Okay, any questions? Just from me, Sheriff Essick, Nick had put towards the end, showed us that graph, right? And he said, can't really put his finger on exactly what it was. We've implemented SB 54 in other areas, but that's a drastic decline in communications. Just want to, best to your ability has it been remarkable, the reduction? Do you attribute a lot of it to COVID, even though we're talking about average daily population, or just your best guess from yourself, if you don't mind?
I will do my best. Good evening, board members, colleagues, and members of the public. I think Supervisor Gore, probably to answer your question requires a little bit of speculation. And I hope that you could at least entertain some speculation on my part, because we don't have a whole lot of data. We only have essentially this precipitous drop in the last year, with not a lot of other years to compare it to. But two things that I want to point out to you and to members of the public are the change in administration at the federal level resulted in two memos from the Department of Homeland Security, which is chaired by Secretary Mayorkas. The first memo was authored by Secretary Mayorkas on February 18th, 2021, and then a subsequent memo was authored by him on September 30th of 2021. In both of those memos, Secretary Mayorkas reset criteria and enforcement priorities within his own organization, Homeland Security, vis-a-vis ICE. And those three priorities that he set, that I assume came through collaboration with the new administration, was to focus in three areas. First, the threat to national security, the threat to border security, and then finally the threat to public safety. So with the reprioritization of ICE enforcement priorities, I think that is why we have seen, and that's where I would speculate the most, where we've seen such a precipitous drop. It is interesting to note that these memos are quite long, and they're available on Homeland Security's website. But it is interesting to note that the new direction that was set by Secretary Mayorkas aligns very well with what we are doing here in Sonoma County. So the matrix that we set up here in Sonoma County in collaboration with the public defender and other stakeholders actually mirrors very well what our new administration came out with guidance and what Secretary Mayorkas implemented. So that's my speculation on why it has dropped so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Anything else you want to add?
That's it for now, but I'm happy to answer any questions as they come up.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, board members, once again, any questions before we go to another set of updates? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So before we go to public comment, we're going to have one more chance for the board members after the presentation of the Secure Families Collaborative, asking Bruce Goldstein to weigh in and take us through.
Thank you very much, Chair Gore, and good evening. Allegria is going to be helping me out with the PowerPoint. And on behalf of the Secure Families Collaborative, I very much appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this evening. And our Executive Director, Margaret Flores McCabe, sends her regrets that she was unable to be here. Just as the state legislature tried to add transparency and protections in legislation such as the Truth Act, which you're addressing this evening, this board took the courageous stand to find ways to support undocumented families as they came under fierce attack by then presidential candidate Trump in 2016, and then when those threats became a reality with his election and beginning of his presidency in 2017. At that time, the board initiated a convening of community leaders to try to address the sense of panic in the community over the threat of deportation. People were scared to go to meeting places, to churches, to Walmart, to community centers, because of a fear that ICE would be there to deport them. The concern and fear was palatable. The board asked at that time, the office I was involved with, the county counsel's office, to bring together community leaders, immigration advocates, teachers, to see what makes the most sense about how to address this. The board didn't want to just pass a resolution, but wanted to take concrete action that would make a difference. And after doing an informal needs analysis, there was a consensus that what was needed was leadership and resources to keep immigrant families together by increasing the legal capacity in the county for removal, defense, and other immigration legal services. There was perhaps only one lawyer in the county providing removal defense at that time, which is a deportation defense. And the direction was given, let's see what we can do to increase that capacity while putting a focus on the needs of the whole person and the family. And by taking this step, the board was spearheading this effort and basically saying, this isn't what this local government supports in our backyard, and that we're going to stand up and provide resources to keep our Sonoma County families secure. And with that, the board provided some seed money, $100,000 a year through fiscal year 2021. And we set out with a somewhat audacious goal of raising $2 million over the next 3 years to provide this additional legal and social service support. We partnered with the Community Foundation of Sonoma County and started our journey of raising money from other governments, tribal governments, local governments, private philanthropy, because this was a county-inspired project, but it wasn't a county-owned project. We were active in late 2017 and early 2018, we were, as you well know, consumed by the 2017 fires and had to ask ourselves, with all that was going on with debris cleanup, rebuilding, support to fire victims, is this still a priority to focus our on this?
I'm sorry. I think it's coming across as Spanish in the English channel. Is it for the rest of you?
No,
No.
Christina.
Did you?
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
Okay.
I have it on English. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. Thank you, Christina. So at that time, the decision, it was unequivocal, yes, that this remains a priority, that the fires did not stop the attacks on immigrants and exposed our community's vulnerability even more, including ineligibility for critical aid for fire losses and disproportional impacts with loss of crops and jobs, rising house prices, on top of the threat of deportation that made many people rethink about whether they should stay in the county. At the same time, economists were telling us that the key to Sonoma County's recovery was its workforce, important parts of which were our immigrant community. And so with that, you can see the partners of the collaborative on this slide. In late 2018, we collected enough money to issue a request for proposals through the Community Foundation. And the result was a proposal from a group of organizations proposing a collaborative approach that had its goal to increase legal capacity in the county and focus on the whole client, not just their legal needs. And the goal was to create a system of integrated legal and social services. In other words, get organizations out of their silos and operate as a collective on behalf of our client families. And so what you see here are the current partners of the collaborative, which includes the University of San Francisco Immigration Defense and Deportation Clinic, which opened up with the Secure Family Support, an immigration clinic in Healdsburg. Now, Corazon Healdsburg has also created a new dimension of legal services for their clients doing removal defense, which didn't exist before. At Catholic Charities, the Secure Families Collaborative funded a navigator so that our legal clients could get navigation and assistance to social services to help them. We work with Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, which is a longstanding organization in the Bay Area, and are supporting them in opening up an office in Petaluma. We're working with the Queer Asylum Accompaniment and North Bay Rapid Response Network to provide legal support to their efforts. We're working with legal aid, where Ronit is working to put together a program that focuses on young people who qualify for special immigrant juvenile status. And we're working with the North Bay Organizing Project, hoping to help them advance immigration education and related issues. And with the Santa Rosa Junior College, we are working with them to open up an office on their Petaluma campus to help support immigrant families of students. Next slide, please. So the role of Secure Families Collaborative is itself a backbone organization to provide, as I described, the legal services and support services. But it's more than that. It's to create, as I said, a system where we are having shared measurements of outcomes. We're mutually reinforcing activities. We're unifying different organizations' goals. We're increasing accountability of the different organizations that are partners, and we're raising the standards of service to our clients. Next slide, please. And here are just a few slides that I'll just take a moment to show that since the program started in 2018, we have provided services. This shows 900 people through 2021, but we're now approaching our 1,000th person to provide assistance to. And a breakdown of that are shown in the next couple of slides. So for 2021, in that year, we served 323 clients. And in terms of removal cases, which again are deportation defense cases, which are very intensive, complex cases, we have 82 active cases, and then which include requests for asylum, and then affirmative relief assistance, like the UV visas that were mentioned, and other types of relief. About 120 people. Next slide. And this just shows the types of support services that we provided with our resource navigator through Catholic Charities, both cases that Catholic Charities have taken on for legal service clients, and then warm handoff referrals that they've made. So you can see it's a broad range of mental health services, housing, food, dealing with food insecurity. Next slide, please. Of the folks that we've offered assistance, this shows that they are, the great majority are from Mexico and Central America, and that our clients come from throughout the county. While Santa Rosa has the majority of them, there are significant numbers from Petaluma and Healdsburg and Sonoma, and I expect the numbers from Petaluma and Rohnert Park to go up as BA, the International Institute of the Bay Area, is now starting to operate on Petaluma, and as we're planning to open up an office at the Petaluma campus of the junior college. Slide. And as you can see, we're serving clients in all different age groups. I expect that 0 to 18 and the 19 to 30 to go up as our special immigrant juvenile status program takes off, and particularly if we see also changes in the DACA program. And it's fairly evenly split between male and female people we're offering assistance to, although majority are female. Next slide. So your board is well aware that the needs of our immigrant community remain significant. That it's estimated that there are over 29,000 undocumented immigrants in our community. Most of them mirror national statistics that are part of mixed status households, where some people have mixed status, have legal status, and others don't. We've talked a little bit about the impacts on this group from the wildfires, and you're very well aware of the disproportionate COVID infection rates and efforts to provide services to this group. And I know you're also very well aware of the housing insecurity and employment needs of people who don't have legal status here. And as Supervisor Gore said at the beginning, it's very clear that our immigrant community is central to both the county's economic success and cultural dynamic. This is the last slide, and I'll just say that we're at a crossroads here, that we are setting up a system where we're providing infrastructure for organizations to work together effectively. And right now, as you know, immigration reform has been stalled in the United States Senate. So if that changes, if there is significant immigration reform, or even if there is just the possibility of modest changes to protect the dreamers, the DACA recipients, this would result in thousands of Sonoma County residents immediately needing legal support or assistance, either to apply in what would possibly be a very narrow window of opportunity, or if there's an adverse court case, who will be seeking assistance and trying to figure out what their options are there. Or it's the next election, presidential election, could result in a return to vilification of immigrants and aggressive deportation policies, where again, the need will be great. And with the board's foresight, we begin to establish a basis to address that should either of these come up. And again, none of this would have been possible or occurred without the moral leadership and financial commitment of this board, to which, speaking on behalf of the Secure Families Collaborative, we are very grateful. So with that, Alegria de la Cruz, who's president of the Secure Families Collaborative Board, and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Bruce. You mentioned at the end Alegria as the president. Alegria, is there anything you'd like to add before I move it back to the board?
I was just enjoying hearing Bruce's voice again on our panel here. I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Goldstein. I appreciate you and appreciate the work and the partnership that was forged in the early days, focused immediately on DACA, and then how that Secure Families Collaborative moved and deployed with the support all the way up. For my fellow board members, looking to all of you, and a reminder that we're going to have budget coming up, and that one of the things that I will be proposing, and with all of us, is funding again for the Secure Collaborative for us to continue this good work in our community. And so that'll be something for us to review in April, and late April at our first quarterly budget, and then taking forward. Christina, that's something maybe you can take note of, and we can work on together to evaluate. We've done it as an ad hoc from time and again, but I want to have a policy discussion about that.
I appreciate that, Chair Board, because we welcome the board's existing process of submitting requests for budget hearings consideration. And as you know, we do have the process of community-based organizations presenting a request, as long as they have 2 board members that endorse it, and or a board member submitting it as consideration of the public budget hearing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Great reminder. Okay. So with that being said, I want to go and see if there's any questions or comments from my fellow board members at this time. I see Supervisor Rabbit. Jump on in, sir.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Bruce, for all your work. It's good to see you. It's been far too long. But I want to thank you for your leadership. I know this was a conversation that we had way back when, and the County of Santa Clara was talking about doing something, brought that back, and you actually made it happen pretty damn quickly. And it's through your leadership that everything came together. So I just want to say thank you for that, and your ongoing commitment to the cause as well. It's been valuable. The numbers speak for themselves as you see the cases and the help to those people out in the community. So thank you your leadership. Much appreciated.
Thank you, and it's great seeing all of you too. Miss seeing you.
I also want to call out a couple folks I saw online. I'm looking forward to hearing from the participants, but a former county employee, Bernice Espinosa, I believe is here. I see Renee Saucedo and Zara and quite a few other folks, Alicia Sanchez and others, too many to count out, but I want to acknowledge the work you all have put in and into building a robust conversation and push in our community. Anybody else from my supervisors or on the panel? Okay, great. This is good because it's the main focus of our time here is to hear from the community. So if you can, on the participants list, raise your hand so that we can see how many individuals we have lined up for us. I see that we already have 4 hands raised. And this is exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much for calling, for putting. Okay, this is great. So we're going to do 2 minutes for each individual. And Karen, please lead us through and have people give them access to us so we can hear directly from them. Thank you.
Again, if anyone would like to make some comments, please raise your hand in the Zoom app or dial *9 on your telephone. Renee, you're first on my list. Please state your full name and when prompted, begin speaking.
Good evening, supervisors. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is
Yes.
Renee Saucedo, and I work with Almas at the Great and Day Labor Center. I am part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in Sonoma County, including by the sheriff. As you will hear this evening, non-cooperation is good policy for many reasons. It builds trust with the immigrant community. For example, the sheriff giving the example that he currently gives ICE release dates has life and death consequences. Other reasons include that so many other counties near us have such policies. It allows us to put our values into practice, that we value all Sonomans regardless of status, especially here in wine country where so many workers in the industry are undocumented. My main point this evening is that the best way to create non-cooperation policy is to pass county laws, a county sanctuary law. This way, all county employees would be prohibited from cooperating with ICE. So no matter who is sheriff, the undocumented community in our county may feel safer interacting with county government. The enforceability of the policy is key, as I have learned working on similar laws in San Francisco and Humboldt counties. So this evening, we ask that County Council research and report whether or not the Board of Supervisors may pass a no cooperation ordinance, as many other jurisdictions have, and that this report be made public no later than your June meeting. There are so many other counties that are also probably guided by these statutory guidelines.
Thank you. That does complete our time.
Thank you.
Time. Next commenter, please state your full name and when prompted, unmute.
Hey, good evening, Board of Supervisors. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thanks so much. My name is Zara Garcia. I'm part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in the County of Sonoma, including the sheriff. There is no law that requires that the sheriff cooperate with ICE, so we want to stop cooperating with ICE and get ICE out of Sonoma County. California Values Act limits some, but not all ICE transfers, meaning that SB 54 is the minimum protection that can be afforded if the county continues cooperation with ICE. We want the most protection and stop all cooperations like the counties, the following counties: Santa Clara, Humboldt, San Francisco, Contra Costa, San Mateo, and San Joaquin. Collaborating with ICE is a risk to public safety. ICE is notorious for perpetuating intense harm against communities of color and immigrant survivors of domestic and sexual violence. Essentially, you're sending folks to ICE detentions where physical and sexual abuse occur. Stopping ICE transfers is a public health imperative and a gender justice issue. Detention and deportation deprive immigrants of their liberty. Separating them from their families and excluding them from their communities goes against our community values. It's also election season, and Sonoma County voters should not vote for a sheriff who will continue to cooperate with ICE. The feedback for you all is that it's time for Sonoma County to lean into placing a county-wide sanctuary ordinance. This will build trust within our immigrant community, and the county won't be drained financially or financial liability. So our immigrant community demands a sanctuary law that can be enforced. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Our next commenter, please state your full name and unmute when prompted.
My name is Bernice Espinosa. I am part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in Sonoma County, including the sheriff. I'm also an immigration deportation defense attorney at Corazon Healdsburg, which is part of the Secure Communities Collaborative. I work as only one of 2 pro bono deportation defense attorneys here. I do want to make clear that our services are not only for undocumented, but all foreign nationals, including green card holders and asylees. The county has wisely decided to make sure that our families remain together and try to give immigration services to our residents. However, when the sheriff collaborates with ICE, it breaks those families apart and takes away from our capacity to represent people in immigration court. Right now, Secure Families represents 102 people in removal defense and deportation. There are also 20 people waiting on the wait list. These include long-term residents and those recently arrived asking for asylum but placed in proceedings. When the sheriff contacts ICE, the public defender or rapid response network contacts us to represent the detained individual. Because cases move much faster when a person is in custody, my legal director and I have no time to represent all the people we have to stop, only focus on the person in crisis, and that forces everyone else to be bumped down the queue. I also want to share with you in the last 40 seconds how it is that calling ICE on a person who's in jail destroys lives. Several years ago, I represented a client this past summer who was in detention because of the jail calling ICE. He was not afforded rehabilitative relief, and then shortly after stopped drinking or driving altogether, and he developed a very bad case of diabetes. Long story short, his daughter became severely depressed and suicidal. She ended up writing several suicide notes at the age of 10 until 12 because sorry, my time is over, but I do want to express that the people that are affected here are U.S.-born Sonoma County residents who are worrying about others.
Thank you. I'm sorry. We do have to complete that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next commenter, please state your full name and when prompted, unmute and begin speaking.
Good evening. My name is Jasmine Guillen. I am part of the United Community Against Cooperation with ICE in the County of Sonoma, including the sheriff. I'm also a legal assistant with Corazon Healdsburg. Our community members don't know the long list of charges or convictions that can make them subject to having ICE called on them. This creates a lot of fear and anxiety. There should not be any cooperation with ICE, but if it continues, the information should be provided to the community who's most affected in their language and all websites and social media. If a person is arrested, they will not know beforehand if they're going to be deported for their offense. As a legal assistant, these long lists of charges don't make sense to me. How are they going to make sense to other people who have no legal knowledge? If I'm pulled over for a speeding ticket, will this cost me to get deported? Are questions that I get from a lot of clients. And I also get stories from clients where they tell me that they're afraid to talk to police, any kind of official, because they think that they might get deported. Their children are afraid when they see any police official because they think their parents will be arrested and then deported. Thank you.
Our next commenter, please state your full name when prompted and unmute and begin to speak. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ravel Mast. I'm a community organizer in Sonoma County, and I am a part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in the County of Sonoma, including the sheriff. We are using our county's dollars to support a federal agency based in bigotry-fueled violence. These dollars are being used to oppress marginalized people in our community in our county. It takes a lot of staff and money to cooperate with ICE. We are funding the process of receiving the ICE notification, reviewing the matrix at the time of booking, reviewing the matrix again, and creating the second form upon the release of an incarcerated person, contacting the defense counsel, and the cost of the public defender and the conflict panel time to review all of these notifications and then defend them. The staff to conduct the review process, the staff to complete the reporting, hiring of an analyst by the county administrator's office, and then holding this yearly forum. In addition, the county fails to provide adequate language justice on all websites and social media. When will this be rectified? When will we see adequate language justice in our county's communication on social media and on the web? The muddled series of steps that the sheriff and supervisors must follow in order to comply with the Truth Act and to coordinate with ICE wastes person hours and money that are desperately needed in other sectors. It is unethical, it is wasteful, and it is violent to continue coordinating with ICE. It's time for Sonoma County to pass a sanctuary ordinance and cease all cooperation with ICE.
Our next commenter, please, when prompted, unmute, state your full name and begin speaking. Vicki?
Hi, my name is Nikki Smith. I'm part of the United Community Against All Cooperation with ICE, including the sheriff, for people in Sonoma County that have that role. The North Bay Rapid Response Network is one of 50 rapid response networks around the country and was formed by people who were terrified that their neighbors, people that they loved, their students, their ESL students, and their family members were going to be picked up by a new, rabid, racist government. And we developed in the first month, we met and started to develop with NBOP, North Bay Organizing Project, a hotline that was 24 hours and all volunteer. We set up trainings for legal observers. 500 to 600 people came forward that we trained to be legal observers for ICE raids. And we have accompaniers that help people to go to court. These are volunteers. These are people who are absolutely passionate about helping the immigrant community. And we don't think that it's necessary for the sheriff to go out of his way or to make any reports to ICE. Other counties don't. Other boards of supervisors have stepped up and said not to do this. We've helped, I don't know, you can't imagine what it's like to help one person do all the things they need to do after somebody's deported. So families left behind have extreme fear, and it's known in the community. Please make this change.
Thank you. That completes our time. There is I do need to make an announcement regarding speed of comments. Our interpreters are having a bit of a difficulty with fast talkers. If you could slow down the pace so that we can catch everything, that would be appreciated. Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin speaking.
Good evening. My name is Chris Grable. I'm the president of the Board of Legal Aid of Sonoma County. I had the humble privilege of participating in advancing some of the changes to the sheriff's ICE notification policies in 2017 with a lot of folks here in this Zoom meeting with the Padilla partners and Sheriff Rob Giordano and the board and others. At the time, there was an onslaught of racist and egregious executive orders, but I do think it's important to continue this work no matter who's president. It's really good to see some of the progress and collaboration, to see the results of that, and to see, things changing. But I think we still need to do more. I want to reiterate that, fear of deportation and detention is simply not a formal, equitable, or fairly adjudicated consequence of interactions with law enforcement or emergency services, nor should it be under the protections of the Constitution. Too many people in our community and nationwide hesitate to seek services and institutional support for fear of adverse immigration consequences for themselves and someone in their household. Fear of deportation or detention should simply not be something that prevents people from seeking safety and support in this community. Today, I don't think anyone questions the urgency and dire need of millions of Ukrainians fleeing horrible, unjust violence. Ukrainians are being offered, a lot of formal asylum and international aid at really an amazing scale, as they should be under these terrible circumstances. But it's something we should recognize, that there are many families in our community who have fled similar, if not worse, violence and genocide in Latin America and East Africa and Southeast Asia, but might not have received the same formal immigration opportunities. People in our community should be treated with respect and fairness, regardless of immigration status, and we need to actively eliminate all barriers to seeking safety and institutional support wherever possible, for the benefit of everyone. And with regards to, the violence and criminal offenses, this should be something that's handled by our local criminal justice system with due process, out of respect for the Constitution, but also for justice for all the parties involved here locally. So, thank you.
For our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and slowly begin to speak.
Hello, my name is Karim Sanchez. I'm the Executive Director of the North Bay Organizing Project. I am also a part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in the County of Sonoma, including the Sheriff. We have asks of you all today. First, we want the Board of Supervisors to conduct research to determine the costs that it is spent on this process from the sheriff, the public defender, and the conflict counsel by May. Second, we are asking for you to withhold that amount of money from the sheriff in the next budget cycle to show that you actually stand with us and will not cooperate with ICE. Lastly, to use those funds and support immigrants by investing in Secure Families Collaborative or IOLERO. Thank you.
Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi there, my name is Ellen Opsler. I'm also part of the Unified Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in Sonoma County, including by the Sheriff's Office, for the reasons so well articulated tonight. I have some concerns about the transparency of the ICE Access Data Report that was issued tonight. First, I'm wondering about the 43 criteria forms that resulted in ICE notification of impending release. Will the sheriff be disclosing the circumstances that led to these disclosures? Merely providing numbers seems to be insufficient. Second, I noticed the report did not mention the sheriff sharing driver's license plate data. The ACLU recently sued Marin County for sharing this data, and apparently the practice is common. Two questions about this. Has ICE asked for the Sonoma County Sheriff to provide driver's license plate data to ICE? And second, can the sheriff assure that the public that it will not release that data? Thank you so much.
Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi. Oh, shit, sorry. Oh, my name's Allegra Wilson, and I am also calling to stand with the United Community against any cooperation with ICE. The Board of Supervisors has a strategic plan pillar about anti-racism and about being an anti-racist county. Collaboration with ICE goes directly against that pillar. So there should be no question that you can make this practice illegal. I fully agree with the other points about removing the budget from the sheriff to collaborate and giving it to the community to support other practices, better practices, restorative practices, and all the other points made tonight about the many vital reasons to end collaboration with ICE in any way, shape, or form in this county. Thank you.
Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi, this is Dr. Pana Lassi, and I am calling with the perspective of a physician who has worked in this county for more than 20 years, mostly with low-income people, and often have had many instances where we had patients who were dealing with domestic violence or a mental health break that really needed to have a call to law enforcement, but people were too scared to do that because of the fear of deportation. Heard so many stories of people who were had uncles deported when the uncle was not involved in the issue, all of these kind of things. And so I really am here to support the call to have the sheriff's office not collaborate with ICE in our county. I really think that would be much better for all of us, and for particularly for our undocumented population that is here helping us out. And I just want to say that I will definitely not vote for any sheriff that collaborates with ICE. Thank you very much.
Our next commenter, please unmute when prompted, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hola, mi nombre es Vicky Francisco. Soy parte de la comunidad unida en contra de cualquier cooperación con ICE en el condado de Sonoma, incluido el sheriff alguacil. Gracias.
Our next commenter, please, when prompted, unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hello, my name is Michael Tatone, and I'm also part of the community that's united against the county having any cooperation with ICE, including the Sheriff's Department. We've heard again and again, immigrants are hesitant to work with government, including call the Sheriff's Office, due to the practice of collaborating with ICE. And the openness of our current policy creates uncertainty and distrust. Having a clear policy of non-cooperation with ICE would ease tension, and it would demonstrate our true dedication to justice and community safety. ICE does not make our community more just or more safe. It perpetuates injustice and inequality. It goes against who we should strive to be as a community. I would like to see the Board of Supervisors create an ordinance outlining any county agency, including the Sheriff's Office, from cooperating with ICE or letting them know about detainees. This has been done in other counties like Santa Clara, Humboldt, and San Francisco, and it is on us to do it here. We have the ability, we have the willpower, we just need to get it done. And I second all the previous speakers who said that we should not vote for a sheriff who cooperates with ICE. The sheriff's office is the part of government that is involved with evictions, and as a member of the Sonoma County Tenants Union, I believe that we need to prevent evictions from having any possibility of any idea that it could be possible for the sheriff's office to deport someone because of their involvement as related to an eviction. So, thank you.
The next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. This is Lee. I'm a community member. First, I want to thank you for holding this meeting in the evening and for beginning to see, as I slow down, the critical need for both addressing these meetings, advertising these meetings, and language access. I encourage you to keep expanding accessibility, especially surrounding intersectionality and disability justice access issues. But tonight I'm calling as a part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE, and to encourage the Board of Supervisors to make it illegal for any community department to cooperate with ICE. And I just echo really what everyone else has said. And also I want to just add, many of our farm workers are here because we have farm owners who you allow to pay an unlivable wage. And so it might be a good idea to start considering looking at the root of the problem, which would be demanding that the owners of these billion-dollar industries pay living wages so that the whole entire community is safer in every way. So again, I want to encourage you to make it illegal for any cooperation with ICE. We don't need any child, not one single child in this entire community, whether they're an immigrant because their parents work in a wine farm in the smoke, or they were born here. But if that child is scared any time that there's law enforcement because of ICE, we have failed our community. So let's do better. Thank you.
Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak. Elizabeth? Elizabeth? Elizabeth, you can begin speaking. Elizabeth, you have been unmuted. I can hear you. Are you able to hear me? Okay, we're going to move on. You can rejoin if you'd like to speak again. Next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hello, good evening. My name is Heather Wise, and I'm an attorney on the conflict panel, and also I specialize in the intersection of criminal and immigration law. I have a quick question. Can I ask questions to people on the panel tonight? Apparently not. I can only make a statement. Okay, so I just want to hello, do you have an answer?
I was going to say you can ask questions. It may be addressed at the end of the public comment.
Okay. So I just want to say one thing. Compliance with the state law and SB 54 is a floor, not a ceiling. There's a lot of ambiguities in these statutes, and although the matrix is reviewed by jail professionals, the defense attorneys don't often get all the information to even make a request as to whether the legal determination of whether they're protected is supported by law or not. So cooperation with ICE subjects the sheriff and the county to a lot of legal liability. There was a recent suit in Los Angeles regarding non-citizens being held in jail. The legal issue is a little different, but the sheriff and the board of supervisors settled for a very large sum of money. So my question is, Mr. Officer Essick, how does the sheriff do cooperation with ICE, and couldn't we reduce a lot of civil legal liability if we just ceased communication with ICE? Thank you.
Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hola, buenas noches a todos. ¿Me escuchan?
Go ahead, please.
Mi nombre es Patricia y soy Patricia Moreno y soy parte de la comunidad unida en contra de cualquier cooperación con ICE en el condado, incluido el alguacil. Yo sé que tengo que hablar lento, pero tengo que compartir una historia y es poco el tiempo. Hace varios años conocí una familia formada por una madre y 3 pequeños que fueron separados. Su padre, el esposo, fue deportado al caer a la cárcel. Esta familia vivía en el centro de Family Support Center de Caridades Católicas. Yo los estuve ayudando por todo el invierno, cerca de 3 meses, yendo a recogerlos todos los días a su casa, todos los días al centro, porque estaba lloviendo. Y a las 8 de la noche tenía que ir a llevarles otra vez ropa porque todas sus pertenencias estaban en mi carro, porque la mujer tenía tantas cosas para cambiar a sus niños su ropa que no podía cargarlos ella sola. Así es de que yo me pude dar cuenta cómo una familia es impactada cruelmente cuando ICE o cuando un miembro de su familia es removido, porque en este caso el padre era el que proveía el mayor apoyo económico. Entonces esta familia, los pequeños tenían serios problemas de conducta. Un día pude presenciar cómo el niño mayor intentó arrojarse a un carro y fue cuando yo fui a llevarle las cosas al albergue. Y cuando me di cuenta de esto, corrí a la calle para parar a los carros porque la mamá corrió a agarrar a su niño. Fue dramático ver cómo el niño ya estaba cansado de vivir en condición de indigencia. El niño ya quería irse con su papá, ya no soportaba. Entonces, necesitamos que las familias permanezcan juntas y no separadas. Es poco el tiempo para los meses que yo estuve ayudando a esta familia y es dramático. Gracias.
Next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak. Linda? I see you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. Okay, we're going to move on. You may try to rejoin or phone in. That might work as well. Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi, my name is Dr. Ember Keithley. I work at a community health center here in Sonoma County.
And I also want to present, following many of the presenters today, to argue that I believe I should not be notified by the sheriff. And I would like the county to block all county agencies from working directly with ICE. I also, a few weeks ago, was speaking to a patient who is in a difficult situation of being afraid for herself and her small child in a domestic violence situation, who is too afraid to call the police for fear of being deported. And I know this has real consequences for many of the families in our county. And I really believe that we should not be working directly with ICE. And I will not vote for a sheriff who is working directly with ICE. Thank you.
Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, begin to speak. State your full name and begin to speak.
Hello, my name is Griselda Ruiz, and I am a supervising attorney at the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, which specializes in the intersection of criminal and immigration law, tracks sanctuary policies across the country, and has co-authored numerous local and state sanctuary laws, including SB 54. Fortunately, I also grew up in Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, where my parents and much of my extended family still reside today. Unfortunately, this means that my family has been directly and personally impacted by the policies we're discussing today. My cousin was transferred from the sheriff's office to ICE, and today my U.S. citizen aunt and uncle are permanently separated from their son. I mention this because we often talk of data, but these are very real members of our communities with deep community ties left irreversibly harmed by this voluntary and unnecessary cooperation with ICE. Because we study and write many of these laws, I can share that cooperating with ICE in this manner is entirely unnecessary. It is not mandated by SB 54 or any other state or local laws, and nearly all Bay Area counties have stopped handing off non-citizens to ICE, including Santa Clara, which has had one of the strongest policies in the nation since 2011. And in 2019, their board engaged in a thorough analysis of their policy, which could be instructive to leaders today. Last year, LA, among the largest carceral systems in the country, also stopped transfers. Policies such as these avoid a two-tiered system of justice in which people are treated differently based on immigration status alone. They keep families together, and a study from UC San Diego found that these communities are safer and with stronger economies. I do commend the county's commitment to legal services, but urge it to stop contributing to the need for such aid by handing off community members to ICE. Thank you.
Our next commenter, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. My name is Alicia Sanchez, and I'm part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in the county of Sonoma, and including the sheriff. My family came to Santa Rosa in 1969, and then after going off, I came back in 1986, and I haven't left Sonoma County. And during that whole time, I have dealt with the immigration community workers, and one of the most, the hardest, besides seeing the abuse done against workers, and especially farm workers, is also what the abuse that happens when an individual is undocumented. I belonged in the 1990s to an organization called Pueblos Unidos. And since even then, we have been always making sure that this cooperation between local government and federal government, in particular ICE, has to not be allowed, because what it does, it really does destroy families. It is the worst form of racism, and it is the consequences are beyond what anybody can imagine when families are separated, sometimes for simple thing that somebody got caught, but then once the sheriff or the police reports it to ICE, they come in and they separate that family. So I urge you very much that there not be any cooperation between our local governments here. Let us be a community of sanctuary, so where people can feel safe, not feared because they are undocumented or the color of their skin. Thank you so very, very much.
Our next commenter, please, when prompted, unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi, thank you. My name is Alan Worstel, and first I have a couple of just little procedural things. One, could I request that you say people's names before it's their turn to speak? It really helps if someone's waiting, they can go to their device and get ready to unmute themselves. Even better would be to say who's coming up next and who's after them, which a lot of local meetings do. The other is that if you're going to ask people to limit their, or to slow down their comments, please give them more time to do so. People are writing out these very well-researched things and telling personal, heartfelt stories. Please honor that. So I'd like to echo all of the calls for a firm resolution to have no cooperation with ICE by any county agency. For any agency, including but not limited to law enforcement, to be effective, they need to have the trust of the entire community. Any cooperation with ICE will drive the immigrant community and those that stand in solidarity with them away from using county services. In emergency situations like fires, it means fewer people will utilize shelter services. Our services we offer as a community must be for all members of our community, regardless of immigration status. If people are too afraid to report actual crimes to law enforcement for fear of any collaboration with ICE, those actual crimes will go unpunished and those victims have no recourse. Our community is fractured on so many levels, and a strong commitment from every county agency to not cooperate with ICE would do good things to start to heal those divides. Thank you.
Taking Alan's advice, coming up is Isabel, Carrie, and Nohemi. Isabel, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi, good evening. My name is Isabel Lopez, and I am part of the United Community Against Any Cooperation with ICE in the County of Sonoma, including the sheriff. I definitely echo what everyone is saying, especially what Renee was demanding, that the Board of Supervisors create an ordinance outlining any county agency from cooperating with ICE. I think it is the least that we can do for our undocumented community, who is always the first to be going out helping in emergency situations. I worked with many immigrant women in the COVID-19 pop-up clinics, saving a lot of lives out there and risking their own and their families. It is the farm workers who are out there working even in dangerous conditions to put food on the table, to make your wine that you all enjoy. So I definitely think that it is the least that we can do for our undocumented families. Thank you.
Carrie, when prompted, please state your full name, unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Hi, my name is Carrie Fugit, and I echo a lot of everything that's been said tonight. We cannot allow the sheriff to cooperate with ICE. As a climate justice advocate, I want to bring the lens that preparing for climate disasters means ensuring that the foundation of safety is set for everybody in Sonoma County. And fear of deportation is compounded when we face climate crises. It is our immigrant communities who are afraid to use services like evacuation centers when we have these extreme weather events. As we have increasing weather events, our response also has to be stronger in order to protect the safety for all. I ask for a county-wide ordinance to ensure that the sheriff does not collaborate with ICE and that you do the financial inquiries and not provide that money for the sheriff's budget. We have to make sure that everybody feels safe in Sonoma County, as that is the foundation to ensuring we can be a climate resilient community, and our immigrants have to be incredibly safe as a starting point. Thank you so much.
Nohemi, please, when prompted, unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
No puedo entrar. ¿No?
Yes. One
Oh,
moment.
sí, ya puedo entrar. Buenas noches.
Yes.
Sí, ¿sí me escuchan?
Yes.
Mi nombre es Noemí Palomino. Está ahí con el grupo, con la comunidad unida, en contra de que el sheriff y el alguacil y también los supervisores den información de las personas a ICE. Queremos un pueblo unido, queremos que los niños no sufran depresión, no estén con ansiedad, no estén las familias rotas y no haya divorcios. Queremos que apoyen la propuesta de no pasar información. Queremos que tengamos una comunidad saludable. Gracias.
Kate, when prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Good evening. My name is Kate Blake, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker providing mental health services in the community and a member of HPEACE. I would like to echo the concerns of other community members who have spoken this evening. I would also like to emphasize that the sheriff's collaboration with ICE can absolutely have life or death consequences, as was previously stated. In particular, I am concerned that members of our immigrant community are hesitant to contact law enforcement when experiencing a mental health crisis. I've personally spoken to members of our community who said that they would never contact law enforcement even if a family member was having a severe mental health crisis due to fear of deportation. This situation should not exist. I also want to say that as a community member, I would not vote for a sheriff who collaborates with ICE. Thank you.
Irene? Irene is our final speaker. When prompted, please unmute, state your full name, and begin to speak.
Sí, buenas tardes. ¿Me escuchan?
Yes.
Ok, mi nombre es Irene Pérez y estoy en contra con la cooperación de ICE. La policía está para apoyar y proteger a la comunidad. Y ese es su trabajo. No entiendo por qué tendrían que cooperar con ICE. La mayoría de nosotros, los inmigrantes, hemos trabajado muy duro en los files de uva. No es fácil estar bajo el sol por 10 horas. Y nuestras necesidades, hacerlas en un baño portátil que se limpia cada 3 días. Y a veces aguantarse la necesidad. O porque los surcos son muy largos, muy lejos de los baños, y aguantarse la sed para no tener que ir al baño a cada rato. Y nuestra necesidad la hacemos porque necesitamos sacar a nuestra familia adelante. Y es muy triste que la policía piense en apoyar a ICE cuando debería de trabajar para la comunidad. Somos comunidad que solamente queremos sacar a nuestra familia adelante. Hemos sufrido mucho y no es justo que ahora quieran colaborar con ICE. Muchas gracias.
That completes our commenters.
Thank you very much, Karen. Y gracias a todos que han compartido con nosotros tus cuentos, tus historias y toda la realidad de la situación aquí en el condado de Sonoma. Thank you to everybody who has shared your stories, your real life stories and the ground truth, la verdadera, la verdad de la tierra, the truth on the ground. I also want to thank many of those who I've heard on the call who have participated in other forums with the board. Most recently, one which was the implementation of cultural competency into our emergency plans. Gracias a todos que también han hecho un partnership con nosotros y colaboración en el reviso de nuestros planes de emergencia con el Departamento de Emergencia, de Manejo de Emergencias. Vamos a llevar este plan nuevo a la Junta de Supervisores y buscar avenidas de dar fondos a también grupos en la comunidad para ayudarnos con la preparación para todos los esfuerzos del clima y todo eso. And I want to thank everybody. We also have just recently released a notice of funding availability from the funds that we received from the federal government that are going to go into community-based organizations, and we're looking at other ways to bring rapid recovery into our community and competency. Lots of work, lots more to come. Especially relevant, I want to remind folks, we talked about the Secure Families Collaborative in the early part, and I'll be working with my colleagues to bring that forward during budget times and other efforts. Any of my colleagues want to make any comments or anybody else on the panel? Supervisor Gorin?
I just wanted to thank
followed by Supervisor Hopkins. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just said Supervisor Gorin followed by Supervisor Hopkins.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating tonight. Bruce, it is so much fun to see you on our screen with us tonight, and thank you for all of your work in creating secure communities. But I really especially want to thank the community for being with us and asking so passionately for empathy, compassion, and just saying no to ICE. This is the reason why we started Secure Communities, because you who work and live in our community, we want you to be safe and continue to live in our community. So thank you and good night. Thank you to Sheriff Essick and all of the folks from the county on the meeting tonight. Appreciate it.
Supervisor Hopkins.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that we do have a specific policy request and sort of a timeline request from members of the community. And I just wanted to, ask you as the Chair Gore, what we could do to try to move forward with putting this on our calendar. I would love to have the legal research. It sounds like other counties have taken sort of more aggressive steps, and I would love to find out what those steps are. And move forward with responding to what the community is asking, to at least have the conversation right in public, because we can't obviously get into that policy conversation right now tonight, but I want to have that opportunity. I think it's a really important one.
Thank you. I think that's perfectly appropriate. And I know you started that effort as the chair last year in reviewing oftentimes the dynamic nature with bills that were coming through in the state and which we were going to support and otherwise, but then also what we were interested in activating locally. And we don't currently have this on the agenda for the Board of Supervisors, but obviously hearing from you and hearing, I see Supervisor Gorin as well, what I'll commit to is going back into our agenda review and looking at an appropriate time and meet with individuals who have spoken in the community. Marissa Montenegro in our county administrator's office has led efforts on this, and so we'll have an opportunity to bring it forward, possibly even when we review the item for farm worker and evacuation zones and other things as well. But maybe we can couple those together. Maybe we keep them separate, but one thing potentially for the ad hoc to consider as well that is on that. Thank you very much, Supervisor Hopkins. Sheriff Essick, I want to hand over to you. I see your hands up.
Thank you, Supervisor Gore. I did take notes during our conversation tonight, and I did, if you could give me the opportunity for maybe 2 minutes to talk
Absolutely.
About a couple of the questions that came up. First and foremost, there seems to still be some confusion and misinformation out there. The Sheriff's Office does not notify ICE when someone comes into custody. We do not ask a person when they come into custody what their immigration status is. The way that ICE finds out about someone coming into Sonoma County Sheriff's Office custody is we are required by law to take someone's fingerprints when they come in. We then transmit those fingerprints electronically to the state of California, their Department of Justice. From there, the state of California is required by federal law to retransmit those fingerprints to the FBI in Washington, D.C. From there, the FBI transmits those fingerprints to a number of federal agencies, including Homeland Security and ICE. So typically, within about 15 minutes of us taking someone's fingerprints here in Sonoma County, they are transmitted to Washington, D.C. And if a person is on an ICE watch list, that sets a chain of events where ICE reaches out to the sheriff's office. So, by taking someone's fingerprints, I'm complying with both California and federal law to do that. But I do want to, there is some nuance there that the sheriff's office does not pick up the telephone and call ICE. So that does seem to be a misconception. And then two other quick points. There was a question about the forms that we complete when reviewing an individual. Those forms do contain confidential information about the person. So we do not release those to the public. However, those forms are provided to the person's attorney of record. In most cases, that is the public defender's office here in Sonoma County. There are a few cases where they're represented by private counsel. Those forms are turned over to those attorneys immediately upon completion. So that information is shared, but in a confidential way with their legal representative. And then finally, a little bit off topic, but about data sharing. One caller asked about the sharing of license plate data. I would just state for the record, I think all the board members know this, but the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office does not collect license plate information. The Sheriff's Office does not own or possess any license plate readers in this county. So we do not collect license plate data, and therefore we don't share it because we don't collect it. We don't have it to share. I think that's it. Again, to make myself available if the board has any other questions.
Sheriff, one couple follow-ups. One is that with the transmission of the fingerprints, that's for all individuals, whether they're any person who's booked into jail. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, and then when those go through, when ICE has maybe a watch list through Homeland Security, how does that get filtered through the prism or the view of SB 54 and what we implement locally? Do we justify what we're going to respond on? Do they cast a wider net based on all areas that they have for a watch, and we only respond to areas that SB 54 does not have exemptions for?
A great question, Supervisor. So for instance, in 2021, we can bring this home and make it real. In 2021, there were 117 instances where someone who was booked in our facility made a watch list with ICE. So they sent us requests for information, essentially follow up on these watch list people 117 times. We then applied our SB 54 criteria that we've developed, and in 33 instances, we returned additional information back to ICE. And typically, now I can't speak to every individual case, but the most typical request for information is when is the person being released? They want to know the release date. And again, in 33 instances, we did provide the release date to ICE because it met the notification criteria in our matrix. But finally, I do want to add, the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office provides release data to anybody who calls. And we've had this discussion before previously about restricting access to release information. And I think your board made a very clear-eyed alignment. I think we had some alignment when we've talked previously in that there is a huge benefit for the Sheriff's Office providing information to people who call in. So for instance, if your loved one is in custody, you can call our jail 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and find out when your loved one is being released. You can also find out some other basic information about your loved one, and that's very purposeful so that we can maintain that connection. People can get assistance from their family as they need it. So we do provide that information to anybody who calls in. Now, is it possible for ICE to call that phone number, that public number, and ask for information and do so in a surreptitious way? Yes, I suppose there is. But when we receive an official request, typically through a fax or a document, that's when we log it, the 117 requests we saw.
Okay. One other is for the 33 cases that we responded to, a reminder, since we went over a very high level SB 54, and what were the exemptions, what level of crime are we responding to versus otherwise felonies, misdemeanors, assaults, other things like that?
Well, Supervisor, that is really diving into a lot of detail, and I will do my best to cover at a high level. Our matrix that we apply is 9 pages long, and it was created in collaboration with as I mentioned earlier, with the Sonoma County Public Defender's Office and other stakeholders, and it includes essentially serious, violent, and sexual felonies. It also contains a matrix for people who are on the sex registrant list, the arson registrant list. It also has some federal felony crimes listed on there. So there's a number of things here, and I apologize, but it is really a deep dive into some legal jargon. And we have shared that with all of the partners who've been involved in this discussion and continue to share that information.
Thank you, sir. We have a couple others on the call. I mentioned Brian Morris. I know that you maybe you could introduce yourself. You've been this past year appointed as our public defender here in Sonoma County. Would just like you to say hello, offer contact information for your office and how you see your work on this. And then I'll go back over. I see Supervisor Hopkins, you have your hand raised as well.
Thank you so much, Chair Gore and supervisors and members of the community, and to the sheriff also for being here and answering questions. The way our office is looking at this, particularly the 2021 data, is that while there were 33 instances where release dates were provided to ICE, there were no instances of arrests by ICE, which is a good thing. But since there were 33 release dates given and no arrests made, a good argument could be made that we should not be giving those 33 release dates with no result at the other end. The only result is what was mentioned earlier by a number of people, which is a lot of anxiety in the community, a lot of anxiety for the person who is incarcerated and for their family. So I think that is what I'm taking away from the data this in 2021. And I wanted to give a shout out to Gam Galindo, who works very closely with the data that comes in and also with the notices that come in. And he probably could go on a deep dive that Sheriff Essick was talking about, but I don't know if we need to do that right now. You mentioned contact information. I could give my phone number if that's what you're thinking.
Just the best way, since you're the new public defender, just introduce yourself to folks and what's the best way to contact you in your office?
Sure. My direct line is 707-565-3876. Give me a call at any time, and I would love to talk about issues that are affecting our community, and hopefully we can provide some assistance.
707-565-3876.
That's right.
Okay, 565-3876. Karen, I don't know if you can post that in the chat. I don't really have a chat function on this, but if not, I want to make sure that that's available to potentially through the Sonoma Secure Families Collaborative. I appreciate that, Brian. I appreciate you stepping in and being a role player going forward. Supervisor Hopkins, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you so much, Chair Gore. I just had a question actually for our public defender or our deputy public defender. I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit more about the notification process and the public defender's role in that, and if there's anything that you want to share from your client's perspective.
Great, thank you, Supervisor Hopkins, and thank you, Chair, and all supervisors and members of the community. First, I'd like to welcome our new public defender, Brian Morris, and he's definitely been a warrior with our non-citizen clients, so very happy to have him here. Before I get to the question, I do want to clarify that the matrix and SB 54 does allow for some low-level crimes that are misdemeanors. For example, it could be a low-level theft or some type of wobbler. So it's not always violent type felonies that get reported. It is a very complicated and confusing statute, even for attorneys. And there is a lot of gray area in the law to make certain mistakes. In relation to how we work on a day-to-day basis, is that we, the Public Defender's Office and the conflicts panel, get the notifications whenever they are sent to the jail. And we sort of do an overview of whether or not it falls within the SB 54 exceptions. What that has done is that it's created a sort of a level of detail that we have to get into that, again, is not always clear by law, that could potentially create some type of liability for the county. So that's my biggest concern. The other thing is that we are at the hands of ICE policies, and Sheriff Essek did mention these memoranda earlier. The latest one is from September 30th. We are unfortunately this year seeing an uptick in the ICE notification request. So I have a feeling it's going to be an upward trend this coming year. So I'm not sure if I answered your question to the best of my ability. Did I answer your question, Supervisor Hopkins?
That was really helpful. Yeah, I just appreciate any insight into the process. And, I am really kind of curious because it does sound like it's a complex process. And some of the questions raised by the community were, staff time, right? How much is this actually costing us? I'm wondering if you have sort of any insight into, even because I would also imagine that on your end, right, you're also sort of track this, trying to figure out what's happening. And so how much work is this making on all sides of our criminal justice system?
Right. So just to give you an idea, it takes about 20 to 25% of my time away from representing clients that are actually in the criminal system. So in my role, what I do is I advise the other deputy public defenders about immigration law, which is my specialty, because we have a constitutional duty to do so. And so it takes time away from those cases that are active in the county for the services that the public defenders are there to provide.
Thank you for that information. And I look forward again through the chair following up and seeing if I can get some, costs of this.
Thank you. Thank you. Others on the panel? So I want to thank everybody for your voices. And I want to state that really this has been an ongoing issue for many years, but also many people referenced our original fires in 2017. And I think back on those days, and earlier today I was talking with Alegria about so many employees, Alegria, Bernice, others who were working hard to do what I thought was an amazing job of rallying, of helping us adapt quickly to the needs that we saw on the ground, for which we were not set up for. We were not providing justice to our community. Many of our undocumented brothers and sisters were not going to our shelters, were instead going out to the coast and other areas. And what we learned in those days was that we had an ability to rally, and we could fill gaps in situations But what happened after that is we learned that we didn't need to rally anymore. We needed to better our systems each and every day. I've seen that in different ways. Currently, we have, out of the pandemic, the creation of an Office of Equity, Alegria being the director of that, but not just leveraging that on one person's shoulders for you to be a superwoman in an equity office, but instead is community advisory groups that are now investigating and implementing ARPA with you, the America Rescue Plan Act, and our investments. I think about the work of Oscar Chavez and our upstream investments, of Sheba Person Whitley, who left us but was focusing on other efforts in our community. There's a lot of work to do with the implementation of our culture of competency framework into our emergency management plans, with the investments that are coming along, and then what we've talked about with funding of the Secure Families Collaborative and also our state and legislative advocacy. The commitment has to be to do better, para mejorar cada día. I say that the mission for better is never complete, and that's why I appreciate the voices on this call that have led to so much change and want to see so much more, and we're going to have to work on that together to figure out where we go as a community. But that's appreciation for everybody being here. Gracias a todos ustedes. Ya son las 8 de la tarde. Encantado de estar aquí con ustedes y escuchar los comentarios. And thank you to everybody very much. We're adjourned. Our next meeting will be held on March 15th, 2022. Same regular board meeting time, 8:30 in our county chambers. Thank you to my colleagues and those on the panel for joining us.